Imagine you are not a king, not a famous general. No statues will ever be built for you. No historian will write your name. You are just an ordinary soldier. A young man in his 20s. You carry a long spear, a heavy shield, bronze armor that becomes painfully hot under the sun. You march for hours every day, sometimes for weeks without real rest, always following one man, a young king only slightly older than you. His name, Alexander. He did not choose glory. He did not dream about conquering the world. A messenger from the king came to your village, and everything changed. Now you are marching across the ancient world, behind one of the most ambitious men in history. But history rarely tells the story of men like you. The hunger, the exhaustion, the fear before battle, the endless marching, and the moments when you realize you could die at any second. Today we will experience that life. What if you were an ordinary soldier in the army of Alexander the Great? The year is 334 BC. You come from Macedonia, a small farming village surrounded by hills and fields. Your life used to be simple. You woke up before sunrise, worked the land with your father, fed animals, repaired tools. War was something distant, something kings talked about, not something that belonged to your life. But one morning a royal messenger arrived, dust covering his horse, a command from the king. Alexander of Macedon was preparing to invade the greatest empire in the world, the Persian Empire, a kingdom so vast that people say it stretches from the Mediterranean Sea all the way to India. Every able-bodied man must join the army. There is no real choice. You say goodbye to your family. Your mother cries quietly. Your father says little. He fought in wars before. He knows what war really means. A few days later, you leave your village, possibly forever. Soon you arrive where the army is gathering. Thousands of men are already there. Farmers, hunters, blacksmiths, young men who have never held a weapon before. Training begins immediately. You are introduced to the main weapon of the Macedonian army, the sarissa, a massive spear almost 6 meters long, much longer than the spears used by most other armies. At first you can barely hold it properly. It is heavy and awkward. You must use both hands to control it. Day after day the training continues. Stand in line, raise the spear, lower the spear, step forward together, hold formation again and again. Your shoulders ache, your hands blister, your back burns under the armor. But slowly something begins to change. The army becomes disciplined, not a crowd of men but a machine. You are placed inside the most important formation of the Macedonian army, the phalanx, rows of soldiers standing shoulder to shoulder, shields touching, spears pointing forward. The first 5 rows extend their spears in front of the formation, creating a forest of steel. When the phalanx moves forward, it looks less like soldiers and more like a moving wall of spears. Enemy soldiers can barely reach you. They see only hundreds of spear points moving toward them. This formation is the secret behind the success of the Macedonian army, but it has a weakness if the formation breaks. If soldiers panic or lose alignment, the entire line becomes vulnerable. And if that happens, you are exposed. Weeks later, the army marches toward the coast. Thousands of soldiers moving together. The sound of armor, leather straps, boots hitting the ground. When you reach the sea, you see something incredible. Hundreds of ships waiting. Alexander is taking the army across the water, into Asia, the place where the Persian Empire begins. Many soldiers pretend to be brave, but deep inside, most of you are afraid. Because once you cross that sea, there is no easy way back. After crossing the Hellespont, Alexander steps onto Asian soil. Legend says he throws his spear into the ground, claiming the land as his by right of conquest. The soldiers cheer, but you feel something different. Uncertainty. Soon after landing, the army faces its first major battle, the Battle of the Granicus River. Persian forces wait on the opposite bank, their cavalry shining in armor, archers ready. You stand behind the front lines, your heart beating fast. Alexander does not hesitate. His cavalry charges first. Horses rushing into the river, then the order comes. Advance. You step into the water. Cold water rising around your legs, your armor becoming heavier. Arrows begin to fall. One soldier beside you screams as an arrow strikes his arm, but the phalanx keeps moving. Forward, step by step, your spear pointed ahead, your shield tight against your body. For the first time in your life, you might kill someone or die. The battle is chaos, mud, steel, shouting, horses screaming, but eventually the Persian line breaks. Alexander wins his first major victory in Asia. When the fighting ends, the battlefield becomes silent to silent. Bodies lie everywhere, some Persian, some Macedonian. A soldier you spoke to yesterday now lies motionless in the mud. Army doctors move between the wounded. Some soldiers scream in pain. Others stare quietly at the sky. This is when you understand something important. War is not glory. War is survival. The campaign continues, victory after victory, but after every battle comes more marching, sometimes 30 kilometers in a single day. Your sandals wear down, your feet bleed. Food becomes simple. Bread, cheese, sometimes dried meat. Water is not always clean. You drink from rivers and muddy streams. At night you sleep on the ground, sometimes under freezing wind, sometimes under burning heat. Alexander pushes the army forward. City after city falls. Eventually you reach one of the most important battles in history. The Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BC. Across the vast plain stands the Persian king Darius III. His army is enormous. Ancient sources claim hundreds of thousands of soldiers, chariots with blades attached to their wheels, heavy cavalry, archers. The Persians even prepared the battlefield by flattening the ground so their chariots could move faster. The night before the battle is tense. Some soldiers pray, others sharpen their weapons. Many cannot sleep. At sunrise, the armies move. Dust rises into the air. The Persian chariots charge first, their wheels equipped with blades designed to cut through infantry, but the Macedonian soldiers were trained for this. The phalanx opens its ranks. The chariots pass through the gaps. Then soldiers attack them from behind. The battlefield becomes chaos, metal clashing, men shouting, horses crashing into shields. You fight mostly on instinct. Then suddenly a rumor spreads across the battlefield. Darius is fleeing. The Persian king has abandoned the fight. Once the king runs, the army collapses. The Persian line breaks. The greatest empire in the ancient world begins to fall. Soon after the victory, the army enters Babylon, a city larger than anything you have ever seen. Massive walls, huge temples, markets filled with exotic goods. Later, the army reaches Persepolis, the ceremonial capital of Persia. The palaces are full of unimaginable wealth. Gold, silver, precious stones. Ancient historians say it took thousands of animals and carts to carry the treasure away. Many soldiers become rich from the loot, but Alexander does not stop. He pushes the army further east, across deserts, across mountains, across lands no Greek army has ever reached before. Years pass. The army slowly changes. It is no longer just Macedonian. Now it includes soldiers from many cultures. Greeks, Persians, Egyptians, Central Asian warriors. Alexander seems to be building something larger than a simple kingdom, an empire. Finally, the army reaches India. The land is different. Dense forests, heavy rain, strange animals. But the most terrifying sight is something you have never seen before. War elephants, massive creatures covered in armor, carrying soldiers on their backs. Their roar alone frightens horses. The most brutal battle here is the Battle of the Hydaspes River against King Porus. Rain pours down. Mud covers the battlefield. Elephants charge through infantry lines. The fighting is savage, but once again, Alexander wins. By now, 8 years have passed. You have marched thousands of kilometers, from Greece to the edge of India. Your armor is worn. Your body carries scars. Many of the men who marched beside you at the beginning are gone. Killed in battle, lost to disease, or simply exhausted. Then something unexpected happens. When Alexander says he wants to continue deeper into India, the army refuses. The soldiers have had enough. Even the greatest commander in history cannot force exhausted men to march forever. After days of tension, Alexander finally agrees. The army will turn back. The journey home is long and brutal. Some soldiers die crossing deserts, others from illness, others from starvation. When you finally return west, you are no longer the same young man who left the village. That person is gone. Now you are a veteran. You witnessed the fall of an empire. You marched across continents. You followed a man who changed history. But history will remember only one name, Alexander, not yours. Not the thousands of soldiers who stood in the phalanx, who marched behind him for years, who fought and died in distant lands. Yet the truth is simple. Without those ordinary soldiers, Alexander would never have become Alexander the Great.